One of our members, Philip, asks, the TRO was issued by a federal judge who correctly focused on the U.S. constitutional issues and left the state issues aside. The question of the public health order. Is it necessary for the state law issues to be addressed at some point? Could this public health order be unlawful under state law?
Yeah, so I'm an attorney in California, not New Mexico. However, the New Mexico Constitution does have a relatively strong right to bear arms provision, which doesn't exist in California at the state level. I think federal judges especially like to keep their rulings narrow. So if this judge figures he can enjoin this just based on the Second Amendment, there's no reason for him to start speaking about state laws and state constitutions. It's a judicial restraint philosophy. So I think this is clearly unconstitutional under Bruin, and you don't need to go further than that. A lot of the lawsuits made that state law argument, as they should. You make every argument you can just in case. But I think a federal judge is unlikely to rely on the New Mexico Constitution if they don't need to.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I said I didn't want to go into the nuts and bolts, but it does occur to me now. So the public health order was of a limited duration, I think 60 days. And does the temporary restraining order restrain it for the entire 60 days? What would be the next step? It's probably TROs are usually 30 days, right?
Yeah, it was either 2 weeks or 21 days. He set a motion for preliminary injunction hearing on October 2nd.
Okay.
It's going to be interesting now because the governor seems to be doubling down, but I imagine she's getting a lot of calls from allies saying, knock this off, rescind the order. We don't want this to become case law at because the TRO order itself is pretty short. It's just the judges saying they're likely to succeed, but we'll see on a preliminary injunction. They'll have more briefing. He'll consider it again. I don't think the result's going to change because the law is so clear. But if she keeps pushing this and gets loses the preliminary injunction and appeals, then you might have a 3-judge panel in a relatively gun-friendly circuit giving a definitive ruling saying, no, you can't do this. And they might, anytime a 3-judge panel gets involved, they might go a little bit further than you want if you're the anti-gun side, So they...
then we have some actual precedential case.
And this isn't, the Supreme Court already said in Bruin that you can't just declare that. They use the example of declaring all of Manhattan off limits. So this is already decided, but still it's going to further entrench the precedent. And I bet she's getting a lot of calls right now, a lot of pressure from her allies saying, stop this, rescind this dumb order. We'll see though, if she shows up on October 2nd with the order not rescinded and it goes to preliminary injunction, which our side will probably win that too. That's probably good for us long term, unless the judge were to flip somehow. I just don't see how that happens. Even though this is a Biden-appointed judge, even he didn't really think much of the governor's argument. So I don't expect that to change upon a preliminary injunction. It's also possible that maybe the order will expire without the governor renewing it, and then because the judge might have some sympathies towards gun control, he might declare it moot even after, while he's deciding the preliminary injunction. There's a whole bunch of stuff that could happen. And of course, the other scenario is the governor doubles down and extends the 30 days herself if she's really going for it.
Right.
So it's too hard to predict what will happen right now. But as of now, the TRO is only effective until the preliminary injunction hearing on, I think, October 2nd. I might have that date wrong, but it's sometime in early October. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen little evidence that this governor acts rationally, but if she has that capability, one has to wonder, does she fear any political repercussions from this? Or is New Mexico so liberal and so Democrat that it really doesn't have any negative consequences?
I don't see her losing. I can't recall if she's a first or second term, or I think it's her first term. But I unfortunately, I'm sad to say, I don't see her losing re-election because of this. Not in New Mexico. It isn't quite as blue as California, but it's pretty Democratic. Yeah.
And the fact that the New Mexico Attorney General and the sheriff in Bernalillo County said he wasn't going to enforce it, I presume they're both Democrats. I don't know. I didn't
look.
They're
both. I think at least one of them, if not both, is endorsed by the big gun control groups when they ran for their election. So they definitely have sympathies to the governor. But I think another big factor here is New Mexico recently got rid of qualified immunity. So that's probably playing into this too. The sheriff probably got pressure, even if he had some sympathies towards her, probably got some pressure from his underlings saying, look, if we enforce this, we can get sued for violation of constitutional rights. And without qualified immunity protecting him, that's a much easier lawsuit than would normally be the case. So I think that was a big reason why this wasn't happening. In fact, I was kind of concerned that it would be the judge might get around this by saying it was mooted because no one's enforcing it. But then the governor, a day before, or 2 days before the hearing, put out a statement through a spokesperson saying, "Oh, we saw the videos of the open carry protests, and we're going to identify these people and send them tickets." And I'm like, "Oh, great, thanks. That's great for standing. Thank you."
Very helpful.
If she had just kept her mouth shut, who knows? Maybe they could have made some mootness argument, but that's not happening. So,
and in the absence of qualified immunity, they'd be subject to suit both in their official capacity and as individuals.
yes, correct.
Right. Yeah. That's going to get pretty expensive when you strip away constitutional rights from large numbers of people.
Yep.